Until you understand it, knowledge is useless. You just know some stuff.
Chris!
I'm coming from the perspective of someone deeply enmeshed in the culture, doing their own thing without prohibition, standing on the outskirts, looking at this thing called church. I always believed that there was an entity that controlled this planet. How would the sun rise in the east and set in the west with clockwork precision? I just didn't know quite who or what that was. Now, I heard of Jesus, but I didn't quite know who or what that was either, because of all the inadequate and contradictory characterizations people placed on this person called Jesus. I'm coming from this perspective because I once stood 10 toes down, deeply enmeshed in the culture, doing my own thing without prohibition, standing on outskirts, baffled at this thing called church. Because for the non-believer, and sometimes the believer, this thing called church look real crazy. Now, before we go any further, first order of business is a system I developed to help you make better use of the knowledge you acquire. You see, some folks don't know how to properly learn. I was one of them. This was discovered while taking a math class, an entire semester of acquiring information but not yet really understanding what was going on in the first place. You see, people do that throughout adulthood, missing steps like PEMDAS and getting the wrong outcomes, and then discovering the high cost of ignorance. Ignorance is extremely expensive. You cannot miss steps in life. You have to crawl before you walk because your equilibrium is not fully developed yet. Your knees and ankles are not strong enough to support your body weight. Now, you may have a system of your own, but if you don't, you're welcome. But how do you learn, though? Getting good information as close to the truth as possible. But what is truth? Original information about a product, like a manual for your refrigerator. That's where you find the precepts, the original thoughts of the manufacturer. When something goes wrong with it, you don't call your homeboy to know how to fix cars. He knows the principles of auto mechanics, not refrigeration. Two totally different things. You dig out and dust off that manual and you get the mind of the manufacturer, the one who put it together. Then you discover how to fix the problem. The old adage of knowledge is power is erroneous because if you don't apply it, you just know stuff. I could teach you what I know all day long, but until you understand it for yourself, it is just like I'm just talking and you just listening because you don't understand it. Until it belongs to you, then you got it. Then the light bulb goes off.
Oh, I got it now.
It's like memorizing 6 times 6 equals 36. Yeah, you can memorize that, but do you know why 6 times 6 equals 36? Application. And see, that's where most people hit the brakes. It's just like people know that eating pork chops every day is bad for them, but they like pork chops and they don't care about the consequences. So they ain't applying the knowledge that they know. I'm like, well, listen, I like pork chops. I'm gonna eat pork chops. Okay, keep eating your pork chops. You're gonna reap the benefits of eating them pork chops one day. Wisdom, in a nutshell, is the application of the knowledge that you clearly understand, period. You can take that up another notch. It's wisdom from above. It's a type of wisdom that only the Lord can disclose stuff to you like that. That's a whole nother type of wisdom. Infinite return on investment. It helps you gauge how much you gained or lost with your investment. Investment of money, investment of time, in your education, in your finances, whatever. Now that we got that out the way, what is church? The word church is derived from Old English, ceres, a place of assemblage. Although church is an Old English word, a translation from a Greek word,
ecclesia.
As a non-believer, standing on the outskirts, looking at this thing called church, in the 21st century, do you know how much stuff they got to go through to even get to God through this thing called church? How many people, practices, beliefs, all that stuff to wade through. Let's start off with the Nicene Creed, often called the Creed of Constantinople, formulated at the First Council of Nicaea in AD 325. It's a long time ago, encompassing the vast majority of today's Christian denominations, and there are a bunch of them. All agreed with the essentials of who Christ is, but still have a bunch of differences in traditions, beliefs, and practices. That's precisely why Jesus always had beef with religious folks. He disrupted their traditions, their beliefs, and their practices. You got Baptist, you got Anglican, Episcopal, Lutheran, Pentecostal. I'll go on and on and on with this denominational gangbanging, but I'm not. It's exhausting. I got a headache just researching this stuff. My first experience with this thing called church was with my mom. It was the most boring experience I ever had in my life. There would be others. My second experience with this thing called church was with my sister. This woman jumped up next to me, started screaming, fell over the chairs, man, scared me half to death. I was traumatized and I did not want to go back to this thing called church. My third experience with this thing called church was at St. Raphael's Catholic School. It was the second most boring experiences of my life. The priest swung this smoky ball around, speaking in Latin. Everybody looked sad, sad man on the cross. Everything about the entire vibe was sad. My fourth experience with this thing called church was again with my sister. That's when I started to realize this is kind of like the Cub Scouts. You got some cool people.
You got some sassy people.
You got some weird people.
Like my scout leader. Like a moth to a flame, the Lord draws the inquisitive in, and you learn more and more about them until you develop an awe, a reverence as a believer, developing a love for this entity that you cannot physically see. It's weird. The people who you can physically see and touch, they start doing things that don't necessarily align with what you've been learning about this entity. That's when my young mind starts to realize some of those develop a dual, even multiple personalities at this thing called church. They operate one way, but underneath those pristine dresses and well-pressed suits, it's a whole lot of stuff going on. My fifth experience with this thing called church was where the Lord personally got a hold of my heart. And I was so uncomfortable. I didn't go back the next Sunday. I'm like, oh, I'm cool. I'm cool on this. And I didn't go. I didn't go back the next Sunday. But like a moth to a flame, that following Sunday, he drew me right back. And ever since, I've been unlearning all the cultural norms I've been raised and groomed in since birth and relearning the culture of the kingdom of God, which is literally like a salmon swimming upstream while bears try to kill and eat you and parasites trying to attach themselves to you to kill, steal, and destroy you the slow way. But the funny thing is, you got somebody behind the scenes helping you navigate the treacherous all along the way.